Folks, I have a secret to let you in on. Can I trust you? Alright, cool. So here goes. I bloody love dinosaurs. Whew, that feels good to get off my chest. Honestly, at almost 30 years of age, it feels like something you shouldn't openly admit past the age of about 6, but truth be told, I think we need to really start changing the stigma attached to that. Because let's face it, dinosaurs are awesome. And that's exactly why I was pretty damn blown away that practically out of absolutely nowhere, the guys behind A Quiet Place, Scott Beck and Brian Woods, with the help of Sam Raimi, dropped 65 onto the 2023 movie release slate. It's a movie with a pretty simple premise. What would happen if a humanoid-like bloke from a different planet with an advanced civilization crash-landed on Earth 65 million years ago? The concept is mind-blowingly brilliant, to be honest. Hollywood finally having a crack at doing dinos in a different way, via the perspective of an alien-like plot in which, well, yeah, a man has to take on what he perceives to be alien organisms for his own survival, whilst of course for us staring back at him shoveling popcorn into our mouthholes in the cinema, see that those very aliens in question are those beloved old Mesozoic mates of ours. I mean, they could have called it Driver vs Dinos and I'd have still been all over this one. But, and here's the but folks, it failed to properly stick the landing. And with that said, here goes my completely unqualified attempt to explain why I think that was the case, and what they could have done to kick this thing up from meteorically average to tyrannically top draw. See what I did there? First up, it's a pretty big one. Something close to my own heart, and well, also a slight pet peeve I have with a lot of things that seemingly have legs these days only to flop and fail. The marketing. Or, in the case of 65, the lack thereof. 65 suddenly appeared onto the scene sometime after the turn of the year, and that's 2023 for those watching in the future, and as I mentioned before, I was somewhat blindsided by it. I'd heard little to nothing about it, and yet here comes a movie that would have been giving little, 29-year-old me an impossible task of containing my levels of excitement for months on end had it had the usual trailer rollout routine most movies have these days, usually promoting it anywhere from 6 months to a year away. It's possible there are dozens of reasons why this wasn't the case for 65. Perhaps maybe it was always intended to be a quickly turned around movie, or that they hoped the minimal nature of its marketing, a bit like Cloverfield, would have developed into high levels of intrigue and bums on movie theatre seats. Who knows? All I do know is that if this film had marketed itself better than it had been at the start, then it could have been staring potentially at a much stronger opening weekend than its rumoured $21 million global box office. It's pretty telling that basically anyone I spoke to about this movie or told that I was heading to see it asked me, "What's that?" or had heard of it but didn't really get or understand what the premise of it was at all. Failing to market your product in most cases is just asking for money to be left on the table, and it's all the more troubling when you factor in the budget, which somehow went from $91 million a few weeks back to $45 million more recently. Now, I'm not sure how you manage that with a movie containing CGI dinosaurs, but I'm very sus on that miraculous drop in budget. That being said, there is one way it could be true, and one way in which you could save money on a movie containing dinosaurs, which leads me on to my next point. The, lack of dinosaurs?
Now eventually you do plan to have dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour, right? Hello? Hello? Yes?
I really hate that man.
Now this could be perceived as unfair. I mean, yeah, sure, the movie does have dinosaurs in it. They cause Drivers Mills no end of bother when they're involved. But yet, for me at least, the dinosaurs in this dinosaur-based movie are still in an area where this film could have had some massive improvement. Now, I'll be fair and say I actually have a couple of points towards dinos, which I may or may not be included in the 6.5 ideas to boost this list's numbers, because, well, I'm cheeky like that, and it's, my video, so I'll do what I want. First up, where the heck are all the herbivorous dinosauria at? I just used the term dinosauria in a video. I'm all for the sharp tooth action in my dinosaur movies, but honestly, would it have killed them to include some form of herbivores, and a possible sense of natural wonder and beauty to this movie? I totally get that one angle they've most definitely gone for here is the alien world, full of murderous monsters to terrorise our protagonists with. But surely a few Cretaceous-era herbivores wouldn't have stemmed the vibe that they were going for here. Having herbivores in this movie would not only have allowed the world to seem more full, since at times it simply feels like Mills and Koa are simply alone on the planet, particularly from wider shots. Look, I'm counting this as half a point by the way, but it would have also allowed for two different scenarios. One in which where we could get another example of the dangers of herbivorous animals in the wild and what they possess, and I say another, as the Jurassic franchise did this most recently with the Therizinosaurus in Dominion and the Stegos in The Lost World. And two, the potential to grow that relationship further between Mills and Koa. allowing for a moment to see that not everything is quite as monstrous as they'd encountered before. If you've seen it, which I'm assuming you have if you're watching this video, think of that swamp Good Samaritan scene but with a much nicer outcome. If rumours are to be believed, we actually may have had a Triceratops and or an Ankylosaur in this, and I've absolutely no idea why they didn't survive the final cut of this film if that's true. My other issue with dinosaurs in this movie, and it's a bit of a nerdy one, is the seemingly distinct lack of feathers. Yeah, I went there. Now this is going to be a quick one because it's probably been talked to death about, but the long and short of it is that most theropod, I didn't say all before all of you come at me in the comments folks, dinosaurs had feathers. This was a huge opportunity to give cinema goers something new and build upon scientific findings that we now have. Yes, Jurassic World Dominion got to this first in some small way last year, but 65 could really have hit the new ground here by having its animals be more scientifically accurate while still maintaining the alien-like menace they were clearly going for. Heck, they even seemingly added a couple of their own creative licensed species into this, I guess via the guise of, well, you don't know what didn't exist if it hasn't been found yet, so feathers shouldn't really have been a long shot. Now I know you got some brief proto-feather looking Dromaeosauridae type creatures in this movie, but for the most part we're still hovering around the crocodilian lizard-like depictions we've seen in movies for the past 100 years plus. I just want someone to make a dinosaur movie that includes our current modern scientific findings whilst doing what some claim is almost impossible and making them still look powerful, majestic and terrifying, for a movie at least within this context. Anyway, now that I've got all the dino nerd stuff out of my system, let's get back to a couple of final ways that this movie could have taken it up a notch. Having more survivors. Again, this is an easy one, and again I sort of get why they didn't do it, for the sake of the hero's journey and the family connections and the blah 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 blah, but honestly, would it have hurt to have a few more people survive this? And when I say survive, what I'm really talking about here is survive to be used as cannon fodder. The peril is never really real here, as the movie never seems to truly put our protagonists in any real jeopardy. Sure, they get into scrapes and scuffles, but the whole time you just sat knowing they'll both survive, and that really there are no consequences for any of the action on screen at all. Having a few human meat sacks to quite literally bite it during the movie would have at least added to the threat and the overall terror our hero is going through. I mean, if 1977's Planet of the Dinosaurs can do it, they could have at least done it here too as well. Christ. But alas, we got none of that. Presumably due to what I mentioned earlier with them wanting to go down the whole man pretty much alone in a strange situation with aliens avenue. However, the point about having some expendable cast also leads me on to my next way they could have improved this movie. A harder R rating. Look, I get it's been done as a 12A here in the UK, or, you know, known to you lot across the pond as a PG-13, to likely get a few more bums on seats, and because presumably kids want to see dinosaurs at the movies. But honestly, this premise, particularly by some of the minds behind A Quiet Place, is practically screaming out for a harder R rating. We've already got a somewhat family-friendly franchise with a few horror-esque moments in the Jurassic franchise, so why not push the envelope a bit and head for something a little grittier and darker? This movie seems pretty much custom-made for just that. Yet for some reason they chose to swerve it entirely in the hopes of cashing in just a little bit more on a younger audience. Now, I've got practically nothing to go off of here other than my gut feeling, but had they included some expendable characters and added a harder R rating to this movie, I can't help but feel like that would have just gone down gangbusters at the box office simply for being fresh, new, and something different. Instead, we're left with a movie that's sort of stuck in this limbo land where it wants to perceive itself as a survivalist horror, whilst also retaining a family-friendly rating, which ultimately leaves it feeling like it's just missed the mark somewhat. And that's my 6.5-ish. Look, who's counting anyway? Wait, what? You were? Oh, ways in which I reckon 65 could have been a much better movie than what we ultimately got. Alright, fine, look, I guess if we really want to eke out a few more reasons for those of you who were counting, I'd probably also add that if you're a studio releasing something like this, then perhaps you're best off doing your test screenings much earlier than 1 month prior to release. Much of this is pure internet speculation, but apparently 65 did suffer from additional last minute edits due to mixed test screening results, which potentially will have added to how this movie seemingly had the feeling of something that had been chopped and changed around a bit, creating a feeling that it was sort of missing something. I don't know, maybe that was just me, but, you know, let me know in the comments what you think. Now, having said all of that, and after this completely unqualified bloke on the internet has had his say on how he'd improve this movie, I'd also like to say that regardless of all those tweaks that I just mentioned, I still thought 65 was, an alright time at the cinema. It hits that sweet spot of having just enough about it to keep you entertained and watching, providing that you switch off your noggin and just roll with where the movie takes you and ask no other questions. It's essentially a high quality B movie. Weirdly, something of a trend right now after just recently getting another movie of a similar ilk in Cocaine Bear. Hopefully, regardless of my own personal opinion that this could have been executed just a little bit better, and I'm probably not alone here, I hope it does do well enough to give Hollywood a little bit of courage to keep trying to do something different with our planet's previous custodians. Because whether you're 6, 66 or 96, dinosaurs at the movies will never not be bloody awesome. Anyway, that's all I reckon I've got time for on this one, so why not let me know in the comments below what you thought about 65? Did you rate it? Do you think these suggested improvements are valid? What would you have tweaked if you could? Get involved below. If you liked this video about a man talking about his strong opinions on a dinosaur movie, then you may well be interested in checking out why I thought Jurassic World Dominion was a little bit hard done by and a tad misunderstood right here. And with that folks, until next time, I'll see you in a bit.